Today I want to talk about freedom, and also just to bring in some insights that I was receiving today. As you can hear from my voice, I'm a little bit sick. For me it's energetic stuff. It came after our Rose Union Circle as we're processing a lot of energies. But for everyone who is not really familiar to the work that we do or that I do, just a brief introduction. I'm a healer. That's what I do. That's my life, my mission. I come from a very mixed background, and I've had the opportunity to be in multiple places since I was born, and I was always very connected to spirituality, and spirituality is the key to everything that I do, and it's really the language that allows me to navigate the world and to assist others in doing the same. And of course it is what was opened, or what I discovered that was opened for me to actually heal in the physical. So today I want to talk about more of the, I don't usually go a lot into politics or these different common media subjects, but I wanted to approach something today, and just to give a little bit of a perspective and a reminder to everyone, especially to the lightworkers, fellow lightworkers, healers, everyone who is here doing their mission, doing their work, helping others, assisting others in their path of awakening, which is not easy, of course, and it is so much more than like a new age term. It's like the complete transformation of the human being when he is awoke to his own truth. And we're seeing that, and of course we're seeing the counter effect to that, right? So the trying to avoid that as much as possible. And even though we may place a lot of these things on the outside world, which we are all intrinsically part of, I always like to reflect it back to the inside. And where are we self-sabotaging our own progress and process? Where are we spending more time feeding off of the content that is given to us, rather than creating our own perspective and our own view of the world? And this goes both ways. This goes into the mainstream content that we receive every day, and also into the, let's say, spiritual content in the spiritual community that we receive every day. Because even though there are very important things, and there are sayings, there are things that help us awaken. I was just reading some texts from Franz Kafka, and he was saying, where he has a famous saying where he says that a book should pierce you, right? That a book should be like a dagger to your heart, so it can actually transform you. And that people should read books that are like a dagger to their hearts. And if we translate it into more simple terms, for me that means that, when you're really doing your work, it's far beyond reading something that comforts you or that makes you happy. Usually these things are exactly like watered down versions of something that was perhaps a profound experience by another individual. And then we just receive it like a digested piece of knowledge, and that's okay too, but what do we do with that piece of knowledge? Like, do we take it in like a cookie, or like do we chew on it? Do we really um, understand it, or take the time to reflect on it and take the time to integrate the knowledge that is there for us, the individual um, energetic information that it's awakening within us? Because a lot of information, when it's not processed, it's just like junk food. You can have a lot of unprocessed information, and that doesn't mean that you are a bit wiser or that you're able to grasp it or interpret it, even though you perhaps logically understand it and understand where it's pointing you. I think it's part of our responsibility as light workers, healers, and just as awakened men and women to really follow the white thread, to really go into the abyss if we have to really go into the underworld if we have to really take that step into the unknown, into our uncomfortness, into the things that are not comfortable. Because in a society, and especially in the Western world, where we're all kind of pointed towards comfort and luxury and spending and consumerism and just undigested information constantly, what we're doing is just being used by these energies, just being receptors or receivers from a lot of energy and a lot of energetic information that makes absolutely no sense. But you're still making your body, your mind, your whole field, your whole energetic being process this. So when we reduce that noise, it's like having a lot of white noise in the background constantly running. So when we're really wanting to focus on healing, if you're really wanting to change your life, if you're really wanting to come out of any sort of hole or depression, or really heal, we have to do a lot of subtraction of these things that are overwhelming our reality, because we don't notice them until they're gone. You don't notice the humming, like the constant humming of something, until it's gone. Like if it's very in the background, you won't notice it until it stops and you hear the silence. So in order to break free from all of this conditioning, enslavement, and especially of this believing, or this belief that we are free, like if you're able to be free from your phone, from social media, from all this white noise, then you're already like a step ahead of everyone else in their path to freedom, in a way. I mean, everybody has different paths, different timelines, but I'm speaking specifically now to those who are awake or awakening in this moment. So don't fall into the trap of comfort and a freedom that is illusionary. Because, just to give you an example, when I lived in Germany, I was like, wow, this society, it really works. They really have a great social system, social support for their people, even medical, free medical support, whatever. I mean, everybody complained there all the time about all these things, and they said it was like the worst. But of course, coming from Mexico, and having been here my whole life growing up, there's like a huge gap between these more developed countries and a country like Mexico, and then underdeveloped countries even more. I mean, if we see Mexico just in education, we're like in the lowest of the low, or even like close to Africa in many places and many things, even though we're more developed in other aspects. But one of the most important factors is education, and especially education in little children. And it's one of like the worst things that we have, poverty. So I grew up in a very mixed environment where I had access to I was really born into different spheres and different worlds that were actually very contradictory or very polarized. And I thank God for that every single day, because I got to see firsthand like two completely different realities coexisting with each other. And then, of course, the third reality, which was the perspective through my brother's eyes, which is a human being with what they call disability, a mental disability. He was born without, with lack of oxygen, and his brain didn't develop properly, so he is like a little child in a body of, of a young man. And through him, I was in contact also with the world of, what they call mental disabilities or challenges, and children disabled or impaired, whatever children. I don't know what the right word is in English. So I grew up with, on one side, like this very normal, sort of wannabe normal world. And then on the other, it was very magical, and I grew up, with children with Down syndrome, autism, all kinds of different syndromes. And for me, everything was one, right? Because when we're little, we take everything just as one. So when I started to see the differences, when I started to actually notice the differences, and when I started to see resistance between these worlds, the world of, my father, which was like European and, coming from this more evolved, society in a way, and the languages, and then the contrast with my mother's side, which was like a little town in the mountains where there's still not internet, they spoke like indigenous languages as well, and where you could see the whole effects of Mexico being conquered by the Spanish. And ironically, my dad is Spanish and Swiss, so it was very like just this mix of the worlds. And also when it came to spirituality, thank God, that's funny, thank God. But my parents were pretty open about it. They all had, they had their own beliefs and stuff, but they never really imposed anything on me. And I think this had partly to do with my brother, and how my brother came to change their paradigm and their spiritual paradigm, their lives forever, since he was born. And I came into this world 2 years later. So I think they were going through a big transition when I made my appearance on Earth. So, well, all of this to tell you that it has been something very ingrained in me, and something very easy for me, because I learned it since I was born, to navigate these different worlds, and to really understand where people are coming from, and going into their worlds, and get the knowledge, and then go into another world and understand it, and understand the different perspectives, even though they may seem like they're completely contradictory. But I always saw the unity in this, and it's the same that I have done in my whole spiritual development or spiritual path, where I have rather focused on the things that made it coherent, and that made everything coherent, and where these apparently opposing traditions or methods were clashing, and I would actually focus on where they were the same, where they were using the same techniques, where they were speaking of the same but in a different way. So I've always loved this, and I'm, very mental. I like to analyze a lot of things. And so when we are now, coming into this time where there are these, there have always been these polarized views of everything. But when I was in Germany, I was a young student, art student. I remember that I would say, wow, yeah, I mean, they're a society that has a lot of things going for them in a way, because people, there are not so many people on the street. Like, if they're on the street, it's because they have like a deeper issue, but there's always like support somehow for them. And it seemed on the surface like, oh, it works perfectly, trains are always on time, people are on time. But since I got there, I always felt like there was this huge pressure put on the whole of society, and there was this huge pressure to be perfect, to be on time, to be efficient, to be the best, to be working. Even, in the art world where there's supposed to be more freedom, there was this huge, striving to be the best, this very masculine energy, which is fine if it's put to good use, of course. But I always found that there was this imbalance where there was this illusion that people were free, but I would see people actually trapped in their sadness, in their depression, in their loneliness, in their isolation. And I would see how, children would be apart from their parents, like they wouldn't have the sense of family, people wouldn't look at themselves in the eye. There was this very individualistic view and approach, like people eating alone, sitting alone. And, I don't think this is bad or good, but energetically, just as an empath and someone who's very clairsentient, and I just felt a lot of lack of freedom. Where comparing it to Mexico, when I would come back, just coming into the airport and having the guards there say hello, how was your flight? Of course this is of course it's a temper, it has to do with the sun, the climate, with many things, but in a way, because of the lack of structure in our society in Mexico, there's always so much room to play, and you see that that's transferred into the whole culture, into the language, into the playing. There's so much humor in everything, and it's also a response to this chaotic structure that we have in society. And I don't talk about this much, and I'm sure a lot of you perhaps know this, many of you perhaps don't, but our whole political system, our whole healthcare system, so many things have always just been so chaotic and crazy, and even getting a driver's license, you can get it when you're 17, you just pay for it, you don't have to do an exam. People just learn to drive as they go, even in a big city, in a huge metropolitan city like Mexico City. I remember I was 16 and learning to drive as I was, driving through the city to go and visit my boyfriend. So, people, because of this lack of perhaps regulations and clarity and rules and strict implemented rules that of course benefit some and of course don't benefit the majority, but because of that there was this sort of adaptation, or this thing that happened where there is a lot of freedom in some areas, where especially in the self-expression, especially in the carrying of their energy itself, very few things that people consider like impossible here. And I remember when I was in Germany, so many people were like, oh no, that's impossible. Like, if you don't have this, that's impossible. So there were like so many restrictions imposed, but at the same time, there was this level of comfort that I remember once going into this park, and I think I have told this before. I remember going to this park with my ex-partner, with some friends, and everybody just laying on the grass, like everybody smoking weed, kind of like, like the 60s and the 60s vibe. I remember sitting there, and I was just coming from the university, and I was like so angry. And I was not angry at the people, but I was angry at, like, if the system, because everything seems that everything is so good and so nice, like, and also at the time I was, I think a lot, like, very political in many of my artist work, and I was talking a lot about the border, the things that happened there, the immigrants, and I really had this desire to help the people, the people who needed help. And one of the things that I found there at that time was like, how can I help something that is already so structured, where there is no like freedom to actually come in and change it? It's like if you already have an almost finished canvas, it's a very different sensation to go into it as if you have a blank canvas. And because of all these things, like, I saw Mexico more as a blank canvas in many areas. Than, for example, Germany, where there was everything, like, so much was already done that there was so little room to actually move and to create, because it was already done. So when I saw all these people there, I was like, these are the future, these are the thinkers, these are the ones who study philosophy, who are in the university, these kids here, these young people are the future, and they are, here relaxing and smoking pot every chance they get. And, not to judge that. I mean, of course, everybody does that. We all do it. We all did it, perhaps. But what I felt was exactly what I feel now when I talk to people, for example, even family members that live in the US, that live in Europe. Like, the perspective is so different because they're not in constant, they're not relating constantly to a completely different paradigm where there's not even that comfort, that level of comfort where things are actually uncomfortable. And many people don't like that, and for example, living in this huge city, it's not comfortable, and it's even less comfortable the less economic possibilities you have, because you have to, perhaps sit 3 hours in a bus and then like 1 hour on the train to just get to work and go back and have like, the minimum wage and go back and, having families, children, whatever. So the thing that I see is that the more we become sort of like complacent in our bubble of comfort, the less we're able to relate to what's outside our bubble. And it's great to have the tools to create your own paradigm, but it's also great to take a look at your neighbor, to take a look at the greater scale, to travel and see what's beyond. What's actually happening when you're not connected to your iPhone? What's actually happened when you don't have internet? When I was in this retreat in the mountain, there was only one spot where the internet would sort of work. And I remember, like, the first day I had to do things, so I was, trying to find the spot. And then when it didn't work, I was like, oh my God, I'm so free right now. I'm feeling so free, and then I could just relax and enjoy being. And that's like the greatest weapon that's being used against humankind and at the moment, I think, which is the distraction of who we are, and the distraction of just being in the moment. we're constantly projecting outwardly, we're constantly being influenced by outward situations, by outward views, and that's part of what takes away your freedom, your serenity, your power. The more you give it to others, or the more you become like a slave to consumerism, to always having to have more, to always having to have the last technology, to always having to have this and that, and it's all just material stuff. So if we really see it, like really, really, really take a look at it, like, where is your freedom? What are you looking for? Because many people, when I ask them, like, why do you want to have more money, or why do you want to work on your abundance, manifestation, or whatever, they always, like, many times the answer is like, oh, so I can be free, so I can be happy. But the truth is that outside circumstances, comfort, luxury, money, of course it can give you a certain freedom, let's say, to move or to travel, but like, if we see the world today, it's not even giving us that, because we are we are needing to go into a deeper state of freedom before we can actually see it reflected outside back to us. So it's important to do the work of, where are you enslaving yourself? Where are you constantly running programs from other people into your mind? Where are you letting this like mass fear or mass neurosis come into your nervous system? Why aren't you able to sit down and breathe? I have seen so many mental illnesses rising in the last, of course, the last 10 years, but especially in the last 5 to 6 years, and through the pandemic even more. And seeing perhaps these diseases or these symptoms, these conditions that weren't really triggered, they were triggered through everything that has been going on, and also through the energy that is coming into the planet. Because whether you see it or not, or whether you believe in it or not, of course we're always evolving. So as much as there's this like there are always counter forces, right? So there's also this light within us that is awakening. I have seen so many people awaken these last 2 years. I had my hands full. I never had so much work in my life, and I know that I was prepared for this moment my whole life. And that's why I created Brave, the program for healers and light workers, for them, to empower people. The light workers are already active here now to step out of the shadows, to start serving, because we need more of those souls who are ready to step beyond, who are ready to leave their fears behind. Even if you are a super sensitive being, an empath, even if you are a hermit or an introvert, I can relate to all of those things. But there's a moment where mission becomes more important, and that's also why we're here, and that's also why you're listening to this probably. But so in that, I think it's important, because I also see myself, of course I'm not just speaking generally, but I also see myself. I see other friends, light workers, we have to navigate the 3D. We have to, find a way to engage, but find a way to engage where we can also disengage, where we can go in, work in the field, and then go out and do our things, do our grounding, disengage from the mass, from the collective energy, disengage from everything that's going on there. Because if we don't learn to do that, which is basically learning our energetic boundaries and creating very healthy routines and strategic routines that serve us and that serve our bodies and our brains, rather than just going with the flow and allowing all of these sort of compulsions and obsessions to become deeper and deeper, Because all of these things, especially social media, everything that goes on in the internet, they all have very addictive qualities, and they generate obsession, they generate compulsion, and they overstimulate our nervous systems. So if you're not in charge of your nervous system, how can you feel good in your life? How can you be self-reliant and trust in yourself when your nervous system, or even, it's causing even like neuronal damage or neurosis, or, when your mind is constantly in overdrive and you can't even hear your own thoughts, or you can't even not hear, your voice, when your voice is constantly just talking and you can't hear the silence. So this is just something for everyone to take in, if you like to review, and an encouragement for all to create these healthier dynamics. And I know that for a lot of light workers, we're working on the internet, we're working on social media, that's how we're connecting to people, creating the communities. But watch out that you don't become so entangled there that you forget your own mission with yourself, which is to take care of yourself, to nurture yourself, to pay attention to your body, to pay attention to your mind, and to become, the brightest version of yourself, so that you can also help others find the brightest version of themselves, find the light within themselves. That's like the key thing for me right now, that we all understand how to hold our own light, how to hold our flame, and how to stand there very firm without letting anything or anyone move us from our center. It's okay when it happens, it happens to everyone from time to time. We get pulled here, we get pulled there, we do this, but try to always come back into the center. Realize, as you receive these words, as you receive this energy, allow your mind to create the neural pathways that you need, and to make the sense of peace and calm and stillness stronger in your body, and practice it every day. Because every day, whether you like it or not, you're practicing the neurosis, you're practicing the flight or fight mode, you're practicing this overstimulation, because we are being overstimulated. If you're engaging in any of these activities, you probably are. And even just by the energy coming into the planet, the body needs time to adjust, to process. And if you are reading information, digesting information, you also need to be very mindful what you let in and how you digest that. And if you're digesting it, and see, like, if you're not digesting all the information that you're receiving, then perhaps it's better to, leave it on the side and not let it in, and really pick and choose what you want to let in. Because where we put our focus, that's where our energy goes. So if your focus is completely splitted in all these different areas, and all these different things that you want, that I want this, I want that, everybody's like with I want. But what do you really need right now? What does your soul need? Not your ego, not your mind. What does your soul need? What does your body need? Connecting to that organic nature, which is divine. That's why many people are going into, living in places that have like less, internet, or in nature. And this has been true for always, like since the start of time. Like most of the very sensitive beings and artists, healers, they have always gone away from the crowd in a way to be in nature, because nature is grounding. Nature is like the counter medicine for all this technological advancement and all this waste of energy that we're generating. When we go into nature, we start to, we don't need as much. We don't need as much light. We don't need as much technical stuff. We can just allow even our own bodies. They sync to the natural rhythms. They heal just by being in nature, just by seeing the green. Your eyes take in all of that green energy. You start healing. You listen to the wind blowing in your face, and it's just healing. And you start to talk to God through this. You start to talk to nature. And, you can call it God, the divine, mother, father, just consciousness, divine consciousness. You start talking to that. And that's our true nature. That's where we find solace. That's where we find our peace, our calm. Many people ask me, about my meditations, why does this meditation affect me? And basically it's because it's not just a meditation where you're just being guided, but it's actually a healing where through consciousness you're being connected to yourself, to that part of you that knows exactly what to do in your body, what you need at this time. And it's incredibly fast and intelligent, and it works on its own. The only thing that it needs is a little bit of awareness so that it can be triggered and it can start working on your favor. It can start working for you. So that's part of what I do, and I hope these healings and these meditations help you. I have a lot of talks like this on my Instagram. I have a lot of playlists on YouTube like this, where you see teachings or where you see channeled messages. These are the type of messages that I bring in, that I hope that help you and support you in these moments of transition that we're going through. And I also do healings. I do one-on-one healings. I do one-on-one coaching. Well, healing and coaching, for me, the coaching part is just like the psychological aspect of it, but the main focus is, of course, the energetic work, the healing, which is what I do and where I have, the majority of the skills and gifts or whatever, they are there for that. So I'm here. I also do a lot of free offerings. I do donation-based full moon healing ceremonies every month. They are 2 hours long. You can sign up on my website. And I also do, I usually do regular Q&As and live healings. I have been a little bit lagging on that because I had so much work, but I'm planning to go back to that very soon. And I'm also going to open a new program for healing the divine feminine, whether you're male or female, but we're going to focus on the divine feminine energy, and especially the divine feminine body, and healing a lot of things that have been considered taboo, that are rarely spoken of, and that are inherently sort of like the wound of the feminine. And we're also going to talk in that a whole module, which will be a month long, will be also about the wound, healing the wound of the masculine within the feminine, which is something that I think is very important right now, because it ties into everything that we spoke in one way or another, how this patriarchal system, how it was imposed, how the feminine have sort of come out, or rebirthing out of this whole period of suffering, enslavement, and imprisonment. And there is a lot in the blueprints of the feminine, especially the incarnated feminine at this time, that hold the codes of freedom, that hold the codes of healing, because of all the suffering that we have gone through as, just as feminine. And we're also, the protectors of the children, and also the protectors of the masculine, because they are the child, they are the divine child. So there's a lot going on for the feminine, and we're processing in very different levels: body, mind, heart, timelines, ancestry, past lifetimes, our fields. So we're really doing a lot of healing, and it is reflecting also in the masculine collective. And I think it's a very important thing for this reconciliation to come through, or to continue, to really see within ourselves, what are we still holding against, the masculine? What are we holding against ourselves? What are we holding in our own masculine nature or energy? What thoughts are we still believing about ourselves? Where is our lack? Where is our lack of confidence? What has gone on in our bodies? Do we feel ashamed of our bodies? How have we been treating ourselves and our bodies throughout our lives? Because there are so many imprints and programs and blueprints from these darker ages that we need to transcend, and we're doing that individually and collectively, but each one of us holds the codes that we need to transcend, and holds special codes that we need to bring in for the whole, for the many, so for everyone. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. And I know it sounds, a bit like deep and intense, but it's part of what I was saying. We're going to go there. I'm going to go there with you. We're going to do this together. And sometimes we do need to go into very uncomfortable places in order to actually heal. I can tell you, just from my own experience, my whole healing journey has been the most uncomfortable thing ever. And it still is, in so many ways, but it's an uncomfort that when we start to welcome it, it actually becomes an adventure, and it actually is challenging us to live on that edge, to really go beyond our limitations, and to not be stuck in our old ways, in our comfort zones. And I know for many it's like, I don't want to go out of my comfort zone, but your soul does. Actually, your soul is always trying to take you out of your comfort zone. And that's why, for example, in the existence of my brother was so crucial for me, because he has a raw nature. He is like completely in the moment. He's just being. He doesn't need to be anything else. He doesn't know how to be anything else. He is just himself, and he lives moment by moment. He doesn't have an awareness of time. He doesn't have an awareness of danger, of fear. So he is present and his existence is raw. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It has been very, very challenging since I was little, because I was constantly faced with uncomfortable situations. More than uncomfortable, like somewhere, even like very emotionally taxing also. But life here on this planet has so much, like in all different spectrums, that the more comfortable we get with dealing with the uncomfortness, with talking about things that are not comfortable, with learning how to speak from our hearts, even if it's super uncomfortable and if it's super scary. This is what I see a lot with the masculine energy, that they struggle to actually just speak their mind, speak their feelings, recognize that they actually have feelings and speak upon them, elaborate upon them. And that's something that we need to take back as a collective, as humanity. We need to take back our freedom of expression, of feeling, of being, of, understanding ourselves, and not always putting everything in the hands of others, or not always putting everything outside, but really going in, going deep within, and taking responsibility for our lives, for the way we are, for our minds, for our hearts, for our bodies. Because as long as we don't do that, then we are like like a leaf in the wind, and it will blow us wherever it wants to. But when you take responsibility, full responsibility of your life, and you decide to go beyond, and you're not afraid to face your fears, you're also you become resilient, you become stronger every time. And then you're also not afraid to face other people's fears. You're also not afraid to face their feelings, their thoughts. You're also not afraid of men, of women. You know, you're also not afraid of relationships. You're not afraid of children with disabilities. You're not afraid of going to a different country where you don't speak the language. You're not afraid of people having a different religion or cultural background. Because all of that we hold within us. And all of the resistance, all of the fight, everything that we see play out outside, if we can start to solve it within, our reality, like we will be contributing to the shift of that reality. So essentially, as we always know and as we do, the work is within. But don't be afraid to go into the gray areas. Don't be afraid to go into the unknown. If you need help to go there, if you need assistance, there are plenty of healers out there. I am here for you. That's what I do. And I'm also going to say it's not, the easiest thing to be sort of like a doctor and hear all the time, witness the suffering of mankind, especially when you're so sensitive and when you're an empath. But when you see the healing that can occur, when you're willing to go and to, not, to put the other person and to see the light from that other person. And when these miracles happen, when that person heals, when that person is changed, you're changed forever. And it's so worth everything. It's worth, being the witness of all the suffering and all the pain, when you know that you're able to do something to counteract that you're able to soothe that pain. I wouldn't be able to do what I do and to go through my life if I wouldn't see every day that people heal, that they heal themselves, that we have the capacity to heal ourselves, our mind, our sickness, our compulsions, our obsessions, our addictions. We can heal that. Yes, we can. And even if doctors say you can't, even if science has said you can't, even if this has said you can't, I heard that so many times in my own life, for me, for my brother, for many. Of course you can. You can heal that. You can heal everything. You can, doesn't matter how old you are. You can always, always find a new way. And you're so supported right now. The light is being supported so much right now. I know many people focus on other things, but focus on the light. If you want to advance the light, focus on the light. Focus on your healing. Focus on how healed you are today. Focus on how you're healing, how you're repairing. See it in your mind. And go see, we are here activated now. There is a reason why there are so many healers. Go to your trusted healer. Go, sometimes we need to go to a certain healer for a certain thing and that's it. And sometimes we need to go with them for a year or two, or, sometimes it all depends on us and what we need, what codes we need from that person, what are we doing. But I can tell you, the deeper the commitment you have with yourself, the smoother and the faster the change will be. But of course, we need to be willing to fully commit and take responsibility of who we are today, of our sickness, of everything, so that we can really go into the journey with clean hands, and leave the baggage, leave the past behind, create yourself anew. And that's something that we can do every day, every breath. So I hope this made sense to you. I will speak more in another video because they tend to go this long. So I actually wanted to do 10 minutes. But anyway, I'm here for you. All the information about my website and everything you can find below. You can always talk to me, send me questions. I really like to receive your input because I am here for you. Like the healings that I do, everything that I'm doing, it's here for each and every one of you who are listening to this. So, don't be shy. I love questions. I send you a lot of love, a lot of peace, and a lot of freedom, whatever that means to you. Okay, I'll see you soon.